MegaPodTastic. Good morning, MegaPodlings. It's Krazy Joe. We're back at the old Regal in Warrington. Haven't been here much, but today we are here seeing a Fathom event. And this was the closest option, so this is where we are. Today we are seeing the Great Muppet Caper. The Great Muppet Caper, the second motion picture starring Jim Henson's Muppets, and the first movie ever directed by Jim Henson. And this is exciting. I think I've only ever seen this on the big screen one time, and that was in its initial release. It was the first Muppet movie I ever saw on the big screen as a child, so I am pretty amped to see it on the big screen again. Let's go check this out. One thing I keep saying is ever since they remodeled this place, it looks like you're on the grid from Tron. And I find that very exciting because Tron is one of my all-time favorite movies. But this place is just overwhelming now. And that's not a bad thing. We are in Auditorium 1. The posters here now are electronic and they change. So you never know. See, that just changed to Candyman. You never know what poster you're going to be looking at because they change. It's pretty impressive, actually. That's an ad. Here's where we are, Theater 1, the Great Muppet Caper. Let me get my obligatory thumbnail with the poster. There we go. That's it. Let's go inside. Fairly empty so far. Couple people here. And we are in, as always, the back row. All right, Great Muppet Caper. Let's do this. And we are back. You just saw my theater experience go into the theater to see Great Muppet Caper. And you know, usually when I do these videos, the next step is I come home and I review the movie. It's a 40-year-old movie. This movie, you've all seen it. And if you haven't seen it, you should have seen it. So I'm not going to review a 40-year-old movie. So I invited the expert. I got to figure out. I got to do the weatherman thing. There we go. Then again, I don't know if on the final composite you're going to be over there. So I don't know. Chris is here. Chris Stulz.
I'm here.
Muppets.
I'm over here. I'm over there. I'm upside down. I'm backwards. Wherever I am, that's where I am.
Mr. Muppet Stuff himself is here, and you went as well to see this, right? You went a different day as me, but you also went, right?
Yes, I went the first day. Shame on you for not going the first day, Joe. Shame on you. No, just kidding. I went last Sunday, the first day that they had it. So yeah, I'm fresh from watching it on the big screen. I believe, I may be mistaken, but I believe this was my first time seeing it on the big in a theater on the big screen. I think. I'm not positive on that.
Now, I know for a fact it was not my first time. I saw it in its original theatrical run. It was the first Muppet movie I saw on the big screen. But I do believe it's the first time I've seen it on the big screen in 40 years. Because, you know, they'll do screenings of the Muppet movie every now and then. Every now and then someone will be like, we're showing the Muppet movie. None of the other Muppet movies ever seem to get like big screen revival showings.
Well, the crazy thing is, and I'm sure you noticed this right off the bat, if you see the Great Muppet Caper or the Muppet movie in a theater, one of these Fathom Events or something like that, there is one thing you will notice right off the bat that is different. than any other presentation of these films, and that is the Universal logo.
Yes.
The Universal logo precedes the Jim Henson pictures that they've thrown in, a few years ago, and then the movie begins because Universal owns the theatrical distribution rights to, I believe, the first two Muppet movies, and Sony owns the distribution to Muppets Take Manhattan and the home video rights as well. That's why it's not on Disney Plus. Yet, as we know, there's a new deal with Sony, so that may be changing soon. But yes, Universal owns the rights. So there's actually, from what I've heard, Universal is easier to work with for these type of things than Disney is. So that's why you maybe see the Muppet movie released more. And it's sad that the Great Muppet Caper is not more widely released because, man, I brought the paper towels. I mean, there are some great one-liners in that movie. And all right, so I'm done talking for a little while. I will let you. You're the host. I don't want to overstay my. So I just want to talk about that Universal thing off the bat. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I will say this of the original three Muppet movies, and I kind of view the Muppet movies as you've got the three that Jim Henson made, the three that Henson was there for, and they're kind of like the wholly untouchable Muppet movies. Our good friend Mr. Cinema Sickness once said the 2011 Jason Segel movie was his favorite. Now, I love that movie, but that pains me.
The man also loves Jar Jar, and not in any ironic way. So we will take his opinions about the 2011 Muppet movie with a grain of salt. Okay?
It pained me when he said that. I'm like, your favorite Muppet movie is one that Jim Henson had nothing to do with. Okay. It's not a bad movie. It's a great movie, but come on, man. So I'm like, you got the three that Henson made, and then you've got all the others. And the others, I love them all. I love them all. Some more than others, but I love them all. But these three are special. And of these three, Great Muppet Caper is easily my least favorite. And it's so good that just tells you how good the other two are. If this is the least of these three.
And I have to agree with you. The problem with this movie, and I'll say this right off the bat, and I'm sure this is where everyone goes like, what? There's a problem. The problem with this movie is it has a sort of a flawed premise from the beginning. And hear me out on this, everybody. Jim Henson loved 40s musicals. And this is his homage to 40s musicals and 40s cinema. And it has this kind of film noir-esque kind of tone to it. And it has these Busby Berkeley musical numbers and the swimming musical numbers, all these things that are things that he's homaging to from his movies in the 40s. Now, in the 80s, no one knows that this is an homage to these things. And you're like, why is this movie has like this slow kind of pacing to it? Why are these things happening? They're like these swimming ballet thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're amazing and it's cool, but like, why is this happening? And then they make homages to that in 2011's The Muppets Muppets Most One at the beginning. But that's what's happening here. So if you have that in mind and you realize that's what's going on, the whole thing runs much smoother and it's much more of an enjoyable experience. If you come into it and you're like, oh, I'm going to watch this movie that's a caper, it's a heist movie with the Muppets, you're like, why is it like this? Like, what is going, like, you know what I mean? Like, why is it like has this kind of tone and feel to it? And that is why. And once you get that out of the way and you realize that's what's going on, it just gives you a much more believable and enjoying experience because you're like, oh, now I get it. It's an homage to these movies, whereas everything else really isn't an homage. Like the Muppet movie is an homage to road trip movies, and then you get right into Muppets Take Manhattan, and it's like this Muppets Take Manhattan still looks like it, except for kind of like Miss Piggy's Perm, like it could have been filmed today. Like they purposely did not make it to 80s New York and tourist attractions, and notice there's no World Trade Centers, all these things that makes it incredibly timeless. Whereas the Great Muppet Caper seems incredibly dated, and not dated in the 80s, dated in the 40s. So it's a whole different experience going on there. So that's my take on it. That's why one of the reasons it's not one of my favorites. It's just because it always feels older than it is.
It's got some big laughs in it, though. It's got some really big laughs. The one line that absolutely killed me tonight, and I've heard this line about 1 million times, but tonight it just struck me more so than it ever did before. I don't think I've ever laughed. I've seen this movie 1 million times. I don't think I've ever laughed as hard as I did tonight at the gag where Miss Piggy's doing the water ballet and Kermit and Charles Grodin are serenading her. And he's not really singing, Charles Grodin. They got like a singer dubbed over. And then at the end of the number, when he plants the necklace on her and she's getting taken away by the police, she goes, "You can't even sing! Your voice was dubbed!" I loved it.
I mean, that's a great line. I mean, there are some sneaky lines there that you don't really get as a kid. And, I mean, the thing with that movie is there's two parts of that movie, or there's actually much more than that. There are numerous parts of this movie that are overdubbed and not done well enough in the execution of it. And I will say this because it happens a couple times with Kermit. Kermit will be talking, he'll be saying something, and it'll cut to him. His mouth is like not moving. You're like, okay, so you obviously ADR'd and did that later, and like that's weird. And the ballet thing with Charles Grodin, it's a great line, but for the first few minutes of it, you think it's if you know the story about the Muppet movie, Johnny Mathis was supposed to sing Never Before, Never Again. And they did test screenings, and it just didn't work. So they removed him and had Miss Piggy herself do have the song, but you don't actually see her singing because it's just an overdub. Well, that's what happens in Great Muppet Caper, right? You have Charles Grodin he starts to sing, so you don't really know it's even supposed to be Charles Grodin's character. It's just this, like this whole like thing, and then you see him pop up in the little circle, and you're like, oh, it's him. And so it doesn't quite, match that. It's like, oh, this is supposed to be him at first, and then at the end, like, oh, my voice was dubbed. Like, oh, I get it. It's goofy. It's supposed to be like that, but you don't quite get that off the bat,
Oh boy! Let's talk about Charles Grodin for a second, because Charles Grodin just passed away. We just lost him this year, and he is so good in this movie. He is so good. Like the one thing I've learned about Charles Grodin over the years is that the man plays it straight. Yeah. What I loved is when he and Lady Holiday walk into the Dubani Club. He never stops dancing. From the moment they walk in, he's dancing. He dances to the table. They sit at the table. He's dancing. She's like, "Tell so-and-so to get the safe." All right. And he gets up. It's like that whole. Yeah. It was great to watch. And I love the fact that he's supposed to be this like well-to-do Englishman, and she has an accent and he does not. In fact, nobody in this movie has an accent, because like all the people at the Happiness Hotel live in London. Not a single one of them.
Well, Robert Morley and but Peter Falk shows up. And he's like Columbo. It's just bizarre. And the other thing about Charles Grodin's character is, his official title at Lady Holiday's fashion boutique, whatever her fashion boutique is named. When you see his title on the door, it's irreparable parasite or irreprehensible parasite. That's his official title. He works there. I mean, there are so many little tiny gags like that. Like that's really good. That's great.
Now, let me ask you a question, because you're the expert, and if anyone's going to know, it's going to be you. Because
I don't know anything. I'm not the expert. I never said I was. I'm just here pretending to be an expert.
Well, here's the deal. I'm wondering if two of the puppeteers in this movie have cameos that I have not been able to find, because early on, Richard Hunt has a cameo as
Yes.
the cab driver.
Yes, and Kathy Mullen is in the cab. She's the passenger.
Okay.
In his cab.
And Frank Oz has a cameo.
Yes. When Gonzo says stop the presses, Frank Oz walks behind him.
Jim Henson is the first one. When Gonzo's taking pictures, Jim Henson. All right. I have not found in this movie Dave Goelz or Steve Whitmire. Do they have cameos in this movie?
I do not know.
I forgot Jerry Nelson. Jerry Nelson and his daughter.
And his daughter, right. I was going to mention that, right.
Yeah.
His daughter died not soon after that filming. She had, I forget what kind of disease, but she had some kind of disease. So unfortunately, she passed away. I'm not sure if she even saw the movie. I mean, it was like very soon. I got to
tell you, ever since I read that, I didn't know that, originally. I read that several years ago. And now I get incredibly sad whenever I see that scene.
Oh, right. Absolutely. Well, it's the same thing in Muppets from Space. If you know the story about that, in the opening scene, after they do the brick house number, they say good morning, and you'll hear Bugsy Honeydew say, "Good morning, Bob," and they kind of show a lamb at the breakfast table with them. You're like, who the hell is this lamb? Like, what is this? Who? So the puppeteer of the lamb, Bob, was a young girl that had won one of those trips because like your Make-A-Wish Foundation kind of thing. I think it was the Make-A-Wish Foundation actually, and that was her wish. She wanted to be a Muppet performer in a Muppet movie, a Muppet production, and so they gave her this opportunity. And again, she died not soon after. So when you see that and you know that story, Muppets from Space, it's the same kind of thing. You're like, ooh, it kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit because that's a little homage to this girl that was performing the character and that had this awful disease.
That's very sad to hear. But I don't know if you answered though. Do we know if Dave Goelz or
I don't believe so. Those two. I don't believe they're in this movie. It's almost everybody else. Even some of the puppet workshop people are there. The woman that's sitting next to Jim Henson, I think it's Amy Van Gilder. I'm not positive. I'm sure the internet will yell at me for not remembering, but she is one of the Muppet Workshop people there. So that's who that is. So there are some hidden cameos in this movie. But yes, I'm not sure about Dave Goelz, and I don't know about Steve Whitmire.
This is also, I think, to the best of my knowledge, or to the best of my memory, the only time that we see Muppet characters performed by people in costumes. For example, when Miss Piggy takes the high dive, it's somebody in a Miss Piggy costume, and it's very, very conspicuous. Same as when she's riding the motorcycle.
I gotta tell you, I don't know if they hired the same person, but there are numerous shots in this movie with Miss Piggy as a person in costume. She leaves the Dubonnet Club and walks down the street, person in costume.
Mm-hmm.
On a motorcycle, in a couple of shots, person in costume. Like you mentioned, on top of the waterfall, person in costume. So there must. I mean, I don't know. I try to look in the credits, but I don't remember seeing like Miss Piggy costume person. But she's definitely in there a lot in that. I think maybe it's just because she sort of fits a person. Like it'd be really hard to have a person dressed up like Kermit, like spindly legs, and that doesn't really work. Fozzie maybe. I mean, the obvious ones are like Sweetums and the walk around characters anyway. But yeah, we don't see a whole lot of Muppets in costume like that. And to most, I would say most of the time in that movie, it works pretty well too.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's, like other shows that use puppets. Like I'm thinking right off the bat of Alf. We've seen that before, but the
opening shot, right? I mean, the opening theme song is a guy in a costume running around with the handheld camera.
Absolutely. I don't want to make this video too long, but yeah, 40 years. I can't believe this movie's 40 years old. It makes me feel so damned old, number one. But
well, to make you feel older, I brought some treats for everybody to see.
Okay.
So I will show them to you. So the Great Muppet Caper was released on numerous video formats. One of which was beta. So this is the Muppet Movie beta, and it comes and opens on the side, and it opens like this, and there is the beta tape in there.
Nice. Do you have a beta player? Have you ever watched it?
I do not, and I have not, and so maybe someday I will. Same thing with this next one. This is the soundtrack on 8-track, and you have there's 4 different tracks here. I'll see if we can get it without the light. There we go. There's 4 different tracks, and it's the main title, Lady Holiday, Step Out with a Star, The Apartment, and then the second track begins Nightlife, The Heist, and then it does it again in track 3, which I don't understand why. It's like there's bold, and then it goes non-bold, and then the Big Red Bus and Piggy's Fantasy. Like it's like the order of the songs is like a little different on this because it's funky. Which brings me to my thing about this movie, the dubbing we talked about. There's one more dubbing thing that's really strange. There are multiple cuts of this movie, and when it was first released to home video, they did not have Nightlife. It was on the soundtrack, but it was not in the movie. It was just the instrumental version of Nightlife. They didn't hear Dr. Teeth singing. So when they cut the movie, if you'll notice, you never see Dr. Teeth singing the song. And the musicians, Electric Mayhem, it doesn't really quite fit them playing either. Just sort of like them playing with the song kind of over them. Because they were like, well, maybe we'll use the song and maybe we won't. So it's not like a music video of them playing. It's always been one of my questions to anyone that's worked on this. If there's anybody watching this, why did they do that? And why didn't they just plan to have Nightlife in there with Dr. Teeth singing? Because my buddy that was with me, he had never seen the movie before. It was his first time. And he leans over to me during that scene, and he's like, who is singing right now? And I'm like, that's Dr. Teeth. What the hell? What's the matter with you? But like, you never see him actually sing.
So Nightlife was not performed in the original theatrical cut of the movie?
Correct. As far as I know, it's not on the. If I put this beta in, I don't think you would see Nightlife. You just hear the instrumental version.
When did it get added back?
I think when they started putting it like the Disney release, maybe, or even DVD. That's when it got put on. Because I remember watching it as a kid, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I saw it, and I'm like, what is this? I never had this soundtrack as a kid either. So I didn't really even know that there was an actual vocals to it.
It's funny you mention it because I have seen this movie many, many, many times over the years, and sitting there in the theater, and I know I've watched it on Blu-ray, but I've seen it much more on VHS. And much more when I was a kid, I had it taped off. Our local channel 17 aired it once, and I taped it myself. And those are the cuts that I've seen the most. And sitting in the theater, I was thinking like, that's funny. Like I knew all the songs, and Nightlife comes on, and I'm like, yeah, I never remember. I don't remember this song. So that explains it.
That's why. It was also released on CED. So this is a CED, and it released it 2 different ways on CED, mono and stereo. And this is the monos were white, stereos were blue. So this is the stereo, and you can see the little sticker there. This is the stereo version, and it is still sealed. This is a factory sealed Great Muppet Caper CED in stereo. That I probably does not have Nightlife. If you were to watch this either.
Oh boy, do you have more? Do you have any more?
I do. And the thing is here, it actually does not have it. The sides are listed as the songs, as the tracks. So it says side 1, start of side 1, the main title, Hey a Movie, Happiness Hotel, Stepping Out with a Star, The First Time It Happens, side 2, start of side 2, Couldn't We Ride, Piggy's Fantasy, and the finale. So we all know that Nightlife would come before the first time it happens.
Right.
It becomes in between. So he's stepping out with a star. He goes to a highbrow street to pick up Miss Piggy, 17 Highbrow Street, and then they'll have to jump in the front seat because the back seat's been quarantined, and Nightlife begins, and that's when they do Bonnie Club, and that's when the first time it happens. So we know that's where it should be, but they don't even list it.
Speaking of Highbrow Street, my God, John Cleese is so funny in this movie. The whole thing with yes, that sounds like it's a pig climbing the side of the house.
The pets are dead. The butler's been discharged.
Oh man, that's a great scene. I love that when he tells his wife, he's like, "Oh yes, that pig was in the closet with a lizard." Oh yes, what did they want, Nigel? He wanted the name of a restaurant. I told him to do Bonnie Club. Oh, that's a supper club, not a no thought to the fact that there's a pig and a frog, and that doesn't matter. It's like, no, why would you tell them?
That's a chef.
Brilliant scene. In fact, let me tell you, I had a friend that told me when he was a kid, he saw the Great Muppet Caper as a kid, long before he ever saw Monty Python. And he said one day he was flipping channels when he got a little older, and Monty Python's Flying Circus was on PBS, and he looked at it and said, "Hey, that's that guy from the Great Muppet Caper. He got a series. Good for him."
Well, and it's funny how he was on the Muppet Show before that. So
right.
I got something else to show you here, and this is something I had never. I have a copy of this in the museum, but I think my copy is sealed. This is an opened copy of the Great Muppet Caper card game.
Oh wow!
So I had never played this. So to literally pre-game for the movie, my buddy and I played this, and it's actually not so bad. It's actually a pretty fun game. So we played the Great Muppet Caper card game. This is by Milton Bradley, 1981. Apparently, a friend of mine has this original artwork by Daryl Cagle that they use. It's really, really cool. The lines of it, they're just really well done. It's a really cool image, and they should really bring it back out and put it on prints and stuff. It's really, really cool. I like it. It's interesting. You got Beauregard is the driver of this thing instead of Pops for some reason. Daryl Cagle decided to put him in there, but otherwise it's I don't know. I really like it. It's really, really cool artwork. I also have one more thing that's really crazy. So we all know the story of the Great Muppet Caper glasses. They're everywhere. We see them everywhere. Don't drink out of them because they got lead paint. All this stuff. But this is when you would drive through the McDonald's, drive-through area, right? This is one of the giant signs that would be there promoting the glasses.
Wow, that is cool.
Originally 49 cents. 49 cents. Which is probably why everybody and their grandmother bought these things, because they weren't very expensive. I mean, what is that? 49 cents from today was like $2? I don't even know.
People to this day, I don't think you and I, we travel in Muppet circles, so we know. But I don't think the average person even knows that you're not supposed to drink out of those glasses.
It became a very contentious issue when I told my mother about that issue, and I told her I had these glasses. She's like, "You need to tell everybody." So when I make it a point, whenever I talk about the glasses, to say do not drink out of them, because people are like, "Oh, well, I mean, I got them more for collectible reasons, but hey, I might drink them." Like they go, "Oh, what do you mean? Why does it even matter? The printing and everything is on the outside." I go, "Yeah, that's where your lips go." Like, hello.
But to be fair, though, how many of us were drinking out of them as kids? Because I had them all. I drank out of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I guess we're pretty safe at this point, but still, I wouldn't do it now.
I think we all got inoculated from the coronavirus from drinking out of those glasses.
Maybe.
I was pre-vaxxed before.
I had a friend who predicted. I had a friend who predicted that the people who were immune, it was going to, at the beginning of the pandemic, he predicted. He said, he goes, watch, we're going to find out that all those people who ate Tide Pods are now immune to the coronavirus.
Hey,
boy.
Have we heard any news about any of those people that took the Tide Pod Challenge that have had it and succumbed to the virus? I have yet to hear that. So it's like Superman and Clark Kent. Have you ever seen them together? No. So, hey, there could be a correlation there.
I wouldn't test the theory, though. I wouldn't test the theory.
Neither would I. But at the same token, have we heard that? That's all I want to know.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us for this. Man, it was so great seeing this movie. I really enjoyed. I'm telling you, I sat there thinking, if this is the weakest, that just tells you how good the others are, because this is so good. This is so entertaining. It's so much fun, and just delightful. Why didn't Joe Raposo? Joe Raposo wrote all the songs for this movie. Why didn't he write more songs for the quote-unquote Muppets, the Muppets proper? Obviously, most of his work was for Sesame Street, which is also the Muppets, but not the Muppet brand, you know.
Right. Well, I think you just answered your own question there. I think that he was just busy with Sesame Street. They were cranking out so many songs. I mean, people don't remember that, today they make 30-something episodes of Sesame Street a season. They were making 130 episodes a season back then. I mean, so they just cranked out so much material. So I believe the answer is he was just busy with Sesame Street, and they wanted to bring him into the fold and see what he could do with Muppets, but he was, he had other stuff going on. Same thing with Carol Spinney. I mean, they brought him over to the Muppet Show. They brought him into the Muppet movie, and obviously Oscar's cameo for the Great Muppet Caper. But they didn't really have him be a part of the regular Muppet crew, mainly because he was like the star and was in every episode of Sesame Street. Again, 130 episodes a year. So there was all this other stuff going on. I think that's why. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the answer.
Well, there you go. Well, anyway, let's hope, keep our fingers crossed that in 2024 we get to go out to the theater again and watch the 40th anniversary screening of Muppets Take Manhattan.
Well, I will tell you, I was they did a show in 2019 in New York as part of, I don't know if it was really a part of Comic-Con or just kind of around Comic-Con, and just like sort of one of the ancillary things you could see while Comic-Con was going on. But they did a screening, a D23, had to be a D23 member to see the Muppets Take Manhattan on the big screen, and they had
which doesn't even make sense, because it's the one movie Disney doesn't own. I mean, you have to be a D23 member.
So they got special permission from Sony to do this, and it's like a special thing. So we never know. We may see Disney do something like that again on a wider release, or maybe Sony doesn't even need their permission. I'm not even sure. But so look for that. Oh, and speaking of anniversary screenings, Labyrinth is coming back to theaters for their 35th in September, I believe.
Oh.
So there's more Muppet stuff coming to the big screen. And the Sesame Street movie is apparently getting back on track. So maybe then 2022, that might be coming out. But who knows?
We'll see. I don't know. See. More Muppets is never a bad thing. So.
Oh, and Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
Coming to Disney Plus. So make sure you watch that too.
Absolutely. You'll have to come back. We'll have to talk about that when it airs.
Right. That I'll be watching that. I'll be watching that the first night it pops on there, for sure.
All right, everybody. Chris, tell everyone where they can find you.
Right here in the Muppet Stuff Museum. Obviously, I put myself into this cage at night. I just open this up and I just slide myself in. But otherwise, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, obviously too. So we have all kinds of social media platforms, and it's Muppet Stuff at blogspot.com, or Muppet-Stuff at blogspot.com. YouTube, look up Muppet Stuff. Facebook, look up Muppet Stuff. Twitter, it's Muppets, because someone in the Arctic has this weird band or whatever, so it's Muppets Stuff on Twitter. And Instagram, it's Muppet Stuff as well. So look for me on all those platforms. Follow us for news and information about all kinds of Muppet stuff.
All right. And I will put the links down below. Everybody, keep wearing those pajamas. Wear your Muppet pajamas if you got them.
And don't forget the paper towels.
Keep wearing those pajamas with the plastic feet. Keep wearing those pajamas. Tell everyone you meet. Keep wearing those pajamas with the back door flap. Keep wearing those pajamas. Don't open, it's a trap. Oh no, it's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander adamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now we're having fun. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now the song is done.